All right, welcome everybody to Stuff It, a fantasy basketball podcast. My new show on the Old Man Squad Network. Excited to be part of the team. My old show was on here as well, but we've made some changes during the off-season, post-season, whatever we want to call it. I am your host, Adam King. Find me on the socials, Twitter, Blue Sky at AdamKing91. Go and find Old Man Squad as well. Or go and find Dan Besbris. Go and bother him. He's got nothing else to do at the moment anyway, so he would love to help you with any issues you are having, steer you in the right direction. What is this show going to be about? So this is a bit of an intro show, a bit of a first episode. I've had a little bit of a hiatus here. Those that watched my previous show, which was Balls Deep, and that show will still exist, but in a little bit of a different format. It will be a live Twitter show on the FBI network still. So still over there. This will be my daily, semi-daily show. So I thought I'd do a bit of an intro and then actually talk about some fantasy basketball stuff because there's not a lot going on, but there is some stuff to talk about. We've got some pretty cool ideas for this show. I'm not going to sort of divulge too much at the moment. I've got some things in the pipeline in the background. We have time on our side at the moment. As I said, there's not a lot happening. 2 months until Summer League. So that will obviously give us something to talk about. The draft lottery is also on Monday, I want to say, Monday or Tuesday next week. So we'll have bits and pieces to talk about. Today, I thought we would focus on early postseason fantasy overreactions. So the teams that have been eliminated thus far in the playoffs. Let's have a look at what the rotations look like. What did we learn? Can we pull any snippets, any pieces of information from what happened and sort of translate that or carry that over into what fantasy value might look like next season? Now, of course, there's a lot can happen between now and October. Trades, signings, all sorts of things, injuries, obviously not as many injuries, but they can still happen. So what we talk about today is not set in stone, but maybe it can just get us thinking about some of these teams and some changes that might be on the horizon for next season. So we will get, we'll get into all of that. But let's start with an ad read. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Now, I don't bet. I get asked to bet a lot, but I don't. So, look, maybe this will get me into betting. Baseball season's going. I know that. It's something I'm trying to get into a little bit more in preparation for my trip to the US, planning on going to see a Dodgers game when I'm there. So it would be good to actually know some of the players. So baseball is going. NHL and NBA playoffs, we know that they are in full swing at the moment as well. The NBA, we will be talking about that. BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with latest odds, news, scores, even live in-game betting. Now, that would be dangerous for me, live in-game betting, because very easy to overreact to things that are happening in the game. And as we've seen in the NBA playoffs thus far, a lot of comebacks. So I would, you put money on Cleveland last night, 2 nights ago, whenever they played. Up 20, Cleveland are going to win, aren't they? Of course they didn't. So, it's that in-game betting can be tricky. The largest selection of odds on everything, all these sports, MLB, NBA, NHL, UFC, maybe golf. Golf is a sport I've gotten into lately. Having spent 3 months on the couch, I've been watching a lot of golf with a view to playing golf. Not very well, but I will be playing it. BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. And when there's no sport on, which it's not often, head to the BetOnline casino, Vegas-style games there, poker, live casino, poker I know about. I can play poker. So they've got you covered. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, let's get it. Now, I don't have slides for this. This is a very ad hoc show. We're just going to talk about the teams we'll work through. Now, I'm not going to talk about the play-in teams because I just don't want to, really. we will just focus on the 8 teams that were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. And then maybe we'll do a show in 2 weeks, a week and a half. Once we're into the conference finals, we'll have another 4 teams to talk about. I'm just going to work through alphabetically. Let's start with Detroit. So they were obviously a success story this season. A lot of positives to come out of Detroit. What does their rotation look like next year? Are there any value shifts? Now, I was on with Menace Podman earlier this week. We did 2 shows. We talked a little bit about some of the Detroit fantasy options. Let's start there. Cade Cunningham, where does he go next year? First round, look, I think I spoke with Steve St. Pierre, and I think he goes first round. I think he's going to go probably back end of the first round, 11, 12, 13, in that range. We came up with a list of players that we thought will probably go ahead of him. But I think just given his age, the trajectory of the team, the fact that he contributes in multiple categories, I think the defense can improve slightly. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite defensive player, but I think those little margins like steals, percentages, those can all increase a little bit. So I think his arrow it's pointed in the right direction, let's say that. And I do think that the ability to draft him outside the top 20 or even the top 30 is gone. That won't come again unless for some reason he falls off a cliff next year. I think he's going to be in this range, top 10, top 15, probably for the next, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know, but at least for the foreseeable future. Look, a key piece, I think Tobias Harris was a very important piece for them this year. Not as important in terms of fantasy. So his numbers weren't earth-shattering. He wasn't doing anything to make us sit up and take notice. But the impact that he had on the team, I think, was pretty clear. And we saw that from their results. So I think he just plays a very similar role next season. I don't really see his production increasing. I think Detroit have got a pretty good young core now. Of course, they've got Jaden Ivey to come back in. He missed a pretty big chunk of the season, so he will come back in. So I think Tobias will just be who he is. You can probably draft him top 100, and he'll be pretty safe there. The 2 sort of players I think do warrant a bit of discussion are Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren. Asar Thompson missed the end of last season with some health issues. He came back this season eventually. It took a little while. He ramped up. He moved into the starting lineup, look, I want to say fairly quickly, but never really hit starters minutes. So if I just pull up his stats here, he was a little bit, I don't know if frustrating is the right word, because expectations probably shouldn't have been super high. But I think we see the talent. We see what his brother is doing in Houston, and they're similar in terms of how they play. But for Asar, it was, look, there was a little bit of foul trouble. That's something that I think will be a bit of an issue moving forward, but probably something he can, well, not fix, but at least get it to a point where he's not as limited by fouls. But the minutes vary up and down. Even in the playoffs, we saw this. So he had a 29-minute game. He had an 18-minute game, 22 minutes, 21 minutes, 23 minutes. And I mean, you read down through his game log, 27, 21, 29, 31, 32, 30, 33. So towards the back end of the season, he was up in the 30s. Prior to that, he was anywhere from sort of 17 through to 30. So the question will be, what is his role next year with Jaden Ivey coming back? Per minute, he's decent enough. He will certainly warrant drafting next season. So I think he has to be drafted. He ended this season as the 145th ranked player in 22 minutes a game. So look, I think we can safely assume he will push back up to 25, maybe 26, which puts him at about sort of in the top 100. Free throws are an issue. He's not a great offensive threat at this point, but saying that, Amen Thompson was not a great offensive threat, and he turned himself into a decent scorer. So I do think Assar is someone that you probably want to take, maybe in the range with Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris has very little upside. Assar Thompson has a little bit more upside, but obviously comes with a bit more risk. Jalen Duren, let's just touch on him very quickly. He, coming into the season, I was relatively high on him. I had him as a top 50-ish player with Mark Williams, Rudy Gobert, Isaiah Hartenstein. There were quite a few centers that were going in that range. It didn't start well. Jalen Duren was pretty bad, if we're being honest. But he turned things around. He ended the season really well. He's clearly their center of the future. He's still only 21, so he's probably even younger than a couple of the rookies coming in this wave of rookies. Maybe. Anyway, not much older. So where does he go next season? He finished this season, I think from memory, he was around 65, 70. He was much better, as I said, over the final 2-3 months of the season. He took his blocks to, I believe, 1.2 per game. So if he can nudge that up slightly, 1.3, 1.4, the free throws, I think, will come up. There was a period there during the playoffs where he was shooting the free throws really well. So I think he can push that number up as well. And with that, the scoring goes up. Rebounds are fine. He's a very good rebounder. So I like where his arrow is pointed. I probably wouldn't want to be reaching into the top 30 to take him at this point, but I do think he has top 30 upside. So if you can get him in the 4th round, 5th round even, I think that'd be worthwhile. All right, next team, Houston. A good season. They finished second in the West, but of course they were bundled out at the hands of the Warriors. So not a great showing in the playoffs. Who are we going to talk about on their team? Look, I don't think we need to talk about Fred VanVleet. We know who he is at this point. He was a bit underwhelming this year, especially with his scoring. But he's still going to warrant, I think, a top 50 pick, just steals and assists alone. So I think we know what to do with him. Dylan Brooks, don't need to be drafting him. Şengün is very good at this point. He is probably going to be a top 20, I want to say. Talent, let me have a look at his numbers from this year. He just quietly put together a good season. He didn't really take off like we thought he might, but he certainly didn't take any backward steps either. So he finished as the 70th ranked player, which, look, if you just look at pure rank, yes, he fell off a little bit, but he was tasked with doing a little bit more offensively, especially. So his percentages came down. He was taking some threes, but the rebounds were great. The assists are hovering at around 5. I think they can push up to 5.5 to 6 in the next couple of years. Steals held steady at 1.2. Blocks were up slightly. It's going to be those free throws probably that will be the difference between a top 60 player, a top 40 player. He ended the season. It was actually his worst season from the line, 68.6%. And he needs to be better than that. And he should be better than that, quite frankly. He should be up probably in the mid-70s. He has been a 71% shooter in the past. So even if he can just push into the low 70s, that will see his points come up slightly to, say, 20. So if he's a 20 and 11 guy with 5.5 assists, 1.2 steals, a block could be nice. He's been at 0.9, 0.9, 0.7, 0.8 throughout his career. So it's probably asking too much, but 1 would be fantastic. The turnovers are high for someone, a center, but Jokic, Sabonis, these guys that are handling the ball, their turnovers are going to be a little bit higher than we want, but who cares? No one cares about turnovers. So, yeah, look, I think next season you're probably looking at drafting him inside the top 30. Tari Eason. So Steve and I spoke a little bit about Tari Eason. He drafted him in our very early mock draft. Yeah, I don't know. He raises some questions for me. I think the upside is there, especially defensively. We've seen it. Very good defender. But he was exposed a little bit in the playoffs, and I think we saw some visible frustrations on the part of Imi Udoka. Some of Eason's decision-making, questionable. Let's call it questionable. So I think the upside is there, but I don't know whether they trust him to play 30 minutes a night. I don't really see this roster changing too much. Reed Shepherd will probably step into a slightly larger role next season. Amen Thompson has established himself as probably not a superstar, but he is a star and will continue to grow. Where does Eason fit? Jabari Smith is another question mark. He was pretty disappointing this year. Basically ended as someone you didn't even have to roster. It's going to be a tough call. Look, I think Eason probably comes off the bench 25 minutes a night. Is that enough to draft him? Probably. Top 100, top 120. Even if purely just because he can get you 1.6 steals. He's a decent rebounder as well. But they do have other good rebounders on this team. Amen Thompson is a good rebounder. Şengün is a good rebounder. Jabari Smith is fine. Steven Adams, if he's still around, is also a very good rebounder. So, I'm not sure Eason can take that big jump that we're hoping for next season, unless they were to offload a few pieces to free up minutes. But watching the playoffs, I'm not sure they would be prepared to do that just yet. And Jalen Green, finally, pretty woeful in the playoffs. He had a good year, but at this point, he just goes too high for me. For someone who is purely a scorer, he doesn't really offer value anywhere else. And as we saw in the playoffs, the scoring can be very inconsistent. I think he had one good game where he had 39 or 37. And then he had games where he had 5 points, 7 points, 9 points. So very inconsistent. They need him to be a consistent 20-point per night scorer. And at this stage, he's not. He will be drafted quite clearly. He usually goes a little bit too high for me, but look, maybe he can turn things around next year. All right. Moving through the Los Angeles Clippers. So we'll do the Clippers and the Lakers here back to back. Obviously, they alphabetically are next to each other. Let's start with the Clippers. Look, of all these teams, they've probably got the oldest roster. If we run through their starting five, James Harden will be 36. Chris Dunn is 31. Norm Powell, 32. Kawhi Leonard will be 34. And Ivica Zubac will be 28. So very old. James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, certainly on the back end of their career. Both were very good this year. I think we probably just assume they will be similar in terms of value. Kawhi is obviously much harder to project because of the injuries and the load management, that sort of thing. He did look very good to close the year. He was playing big minutes. So assuming he comes into next season healthy and is playing from night one, well, probably is going to miss back-to-backs for the rest of his career, if we're being honest. So you have to factor that into your decision-making that probably he maxes out at 65 games next season. That said, a lot of players max out at 65, 66 games. So it's not the end of the world, but there is always that little, your conscience or whatever, it's sitting on your shoulder sort of saying, it's Kawhi Leonard. We know the history. We know the knee injuries. So he will be drafted. I think people will go inside the second round to grab him. Would I do it? Maybe. It would depend who I got in the first round. Harden will definitely go probably first round, if not early second. Probably in a similar range to Cade. I would go Cade personally, just I think he has more upside. But Harden, as we know, very proven. Norm Powell was great this season, could end up being the best season of his career. He will be drafted next season. He could be overdrafted slightly. Ivica Zubac is going to be a very interesting one. So he'd been I want to say top 100 basically throughout his career. This season, breakout year. At the age of 28, impressive. We thought he would be better. He had and continues to have, unless they make some changes, zero competition for minutes. So the job is Ivica Zubac's, and it's not going anywhere. He was top 40, top 30 this year. So I think you're going to have to take him in that range, top 50. As long as he's playing 32 minutes a night, he's pretty much a lock. He doesn't block a lot of shots, but he's efficient, doesn't hurt you from the line, great rebounder. Yeah, he's just very, very, very solid. Healthy, safe. Who else do we want to look at? Well, I mean, Ben Simmons is probably someone we're going to talk about at some point, but we don't know if he will be on this roster, what his role looks like. So I'm not going to waste time talking about him at this point. Bogdan Bogdanovic is probably the only other one. He was pretty useless in the playoffs. Where does he fit next year? I mean, he's 30. He'll be June, July. Yeah, he'll be 33 when the season starts. So he is also probably a lot older than people realize. Does he stay with the Clippers? Is he going to go somewhere else? Oh, I don't think it matters. I think his ceiling is pretty limited. 13, 14 points, 3 assists, maybe a steal, some threes. He's probably just someone we want to take in with a last round pick if you're looking for some points and assists. But as we saw this year, he probably will just spend a lot of time on and off waivers. Moving to the Lakers. Look, their roster is sort of all over the place at this point. Luka, don't need to talk about him. He'll be great. Austin Reeves, he'll be fine. Even with LeBron, even with Luka there, Austin Reeves is pretty clearly a very, very well-rounded NBA player. You're probably going to end up taking him. Actually, let's look at his numbers. He was one of those guys, I think I had him in a few teams, didn't really pay much attention to where his rank was because he just produced. So he ended this season. So he was the 41st ranked player this year. So he's gone in the last 3 years. He's jumped from 145 to 82 to 41. 20 points, 4.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, a steal. Look, percentages honestly could probably come up. He was career worst, 45.7%. Free throws are great. He hits threes. Doesn't turn the ball over a lot. Obviously, with Luka there for a full season, those assist numbers are probably going to come down from 5.6 closer to 5. But I still think he can be a top 50, top 60 player. That's probably where you're going to have to take him in that range of top 50, top 60. I don't think there'll be much value there, but again, relatively safe. Rui Hachimura, don't worry about him. I'm not really concerning myself with any of these guys other than Luka, Austin Reeves, LeBron James. That's it. Where do we draft LeBron next year? Now, he's indicated that retirement is on his mind. I don't think he retires. I think he comes back next year and plays. But we did start to see some drop-off from him, which, of course, he'll be almost 41 when the season starts. So still putting up incredible numbers. I think I'd still be okay drafting him inside the top 30. I do think, maybe those games played come down a little bit. The per game with Luka there, I just don't think he has to do as much. Part of the thinking here from the Lakers, I mean, we don't know. The whole trade with Luka and Anthony Davis was all very weird. But part of their thinking, I mean, you're never going to say no to Luka Doncic, but part of this may have been the fact that because he is a similar player in terms of the ball in his hands, assist numbers, was part of their thinking by having someone like Luka, it actually allows LeBron to do a little bit less and we can almost stretch him a bit further. Anthony Davis, very good player, but plays a different role. So LeBron was still having to do a lot of that facilitation and Luka can come in and take that off his hands and LeBron can almost play second fiddle to him. Maybe that's the plan. I think whatever their plan is, it's pretty clear they need a center. Jackson Hayes was their starting center. He is not a starting center in the NBA. They have Dorian Finney-Smith as sort of a small ball center, but again, he's not an impactful center. Jared Vanderbilt can play center, but has zero offensive upside. Good defender, but a better wing defender than a rim protector. So he is better out there on the 4 or the 3. They've got Christian Coloco. Look, they tried to load up with centers here. The issue is that none of them are any good. Christian Coloco, Alex Len, Maxi Kleber. So I think if we were hedging bets as to moves that are going to come this offseason, I think one is that the Lakers will need to find a center. Mark Williams, he was there. I'm still baffled by that, but he would have, he could have made a huge difference to this team. But they're stuck with Jackson Hayes for now. I think that changes. I don't know who they're going to get. There are a few young centers around. Someone like an Adem Bona or a Kai Jones. I mean, if you're the Lakers and you can land anyone like that you can take a flyer on and just see what happens, I absolutely would. But yeah, look, as I said, a lot of water to go under this bridge. So we will see. Let's move to the next team, Memphis. Look, they were a little bit unlucky with injuries and that sort of thing. Ja Morant, he was constantly injured. Coming into next season, he will likely go top 30 again. Someone will take a flyer on him and just hope that you get a healthy season from him. Desmond Bain, very solid in that top 40 range, I think. Jaren Jackson was, I don't know if I want to say surprising this season, but he was very good despite the fact that they were healthy. He was probably, I don't think there'd be any argument that he was their best player this year. So he will go inside the top 20. Shot blocking, he hits threes, good from the free throw line. Zach Edey was probably disappointing. I mean, he gets blocks, he gets rebounds, but you just can't play him 30 minutes. He gets run off the court. Basically, the way the game is built nowadays, he's a tough one. Would I be drafting him? I think you could draft him late if you missed a center early or you only got one center and you just need some blocks and rebounds. If you don't need him to score, he's okay because he will get rebounds, he will get blocks per minute. He's okay. But looking at some of their fringe guys, Brandon Clark obviously injured. I thought he played well this season. I wouldn't be drafting him though. Scottie Pippen is probably the biggest question mark. He was very good last year, and then this year, building off that momentum, he turned himself into a pretty good player, pretty consistent, even with when they were healthy in the playoffs and down the stretch. He was playing a decent enough role. There was a period there throughout the season where he was starting or playing as the sixth man, but they were only giving him 23, 24 minutes. That thinking seemed to change. New head coach, maybe that had something to do with it. So Scottie Pippen, I think, is someone we probably want to look at late in drafts next year and just see what happens. They have a lot of guard depth. They have Luke Kennard there. They have John Conchar. Cam Spencer, not really, but they have forwards that can handle the ball as well. So there's still a lot of mouths to feed in Memphis, but I do think Scottie Pippen did enough here to show us what he can do. Right, next team is the Miami Heat. Speaking of disappointments, Miami, I have no idea what they're doing. They got rid of Jimmy Butler, it was well documented. He is gone. And look, they brought Andrew Wiggins in, but he was pretty disappointing. He had some injuries going on. I'm actually surprised Miami even made it to the playoffs. Not that they did any damage in the playoffs. They are going to have to make moves. If they want to be competitive next season, they're going to have to do something because at the moment they're a 10th seed, that sort of 9th seed where they ended this year. I just don't see any way they can push up inside the top 4, top 6. Not with Tyler Hero as their main guy. Tyler Hero, now, people know what I think about Tyler Hero. Good player, very good player. Can score the basketball, but he is not the player you should be building around. So they need to add a pretty key piece here. I just don't think Tyler Hero, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, they're the three, I guess, if you want to say, for lack of a better term, a big three. That's their big three. Bam is very good. Can he get better? I'm not sure. He's not a rim protector. They do have Khalil Ware there, who ended up starting at center as we worked our way through the season. Still very young, still very raw. Wiggins, I mean, who knows what you're going to get from Wiggins? He was pretty poor in Minnesota. He had his moments, of course. I thought he found a nice role in Golden State. And then he was moved here to Miami and just never really found his footing. So a lot of question marks on Miami, which makes it hard to project. I think Tyler Hero is still going to be a top 60 player. Really only gets you points. He's a decent rebounder, very good from the free throw line. But he's a little bit limited. So I think we draft him. Bam will go top 40, top 30. He'll just go where he's been going for the last 3-4 years. Let's look at the Bucks, another disappointing team. Of course, injuries certainly didn't help. But, yeah, look, it was a pretty sour end to the season for them. Of course, Damian Lillard, he tore his Achilles in the second last game, coming off blood clots in his calf. Were they related? I don't know. I'm not going to say they were. I'm not going to say they weren't. But he is basically going to miss all of next season. Best case scenario is probably 9 to 10 months he's back, which will put him back in February next year. So, yeah, he won't be drafted. No need to draft him unless somehow he's coming back in December. But, yeah, I don't think we need to worry about drafting him. Last round, sure. 120th pick, sure. Throw him in an IR spot. So with him out, who starts? What is their roster here? Brook Lopez, there's rumors he might go to the Lakers as well. He is 37. They're another team with a very old starting lineup. Lillard will be 35, won't be playing, but he'll be 35. Giannis, almost 31. Lopez is 37. Kyle Kuzma will be 30, and Taurean Prince, 31. Bobby Portis, are you Bobby Portis? 30. Bobby Portis is 30. So another older starting five, or even their whole roster is pretty old. Look, the big question is Giannis. Is he still there? Has he had enough? It wouldn't surprise me if he had enough. Like I said, he will be almost 31. If he wants another championship, I don't think it's coming with the Bucks. So a lot of teams will put their hand up to secure his services. And if that's the case, if he is not there and if Dame is not playing there, this roster looks entirely different. So again, projecting very hard. I like Ryan Rowlands as just someone to watch if there's shuffling and things moving and he ends up starting at their point guard spot. A last round flyer, potentially. I'm not sure. I'd much prefer him to Kevin Porter. To me, Kevin Porter, I think we've seen some upside and some flashes of what he can do. But to me, his attitude and he obviously was suspended. He's been shopped around from team to team a little bit. There's something there that doesn't work. And I think we saw a little bit of that in the playoffs. And look, a bit of niggle, sure, that's fine. But just seems to lose his head a little bit. It doesn't come across as someone who would be enjoyable to play with. So I don't know what his future is on this team. Likewise, Gary Trent. Kuzma, arguably the worst fantasy player going around. Probably has to be rostered, but I won't be rostering him. So really hard to know what to do with this Bucks team, given the changes that could come. Giannis, doesn't matter where he goes, he's a first rounder. We know that. It'll be those other pieces with or without him. But like I said, there could be 2 or 3 new starters in this team who aren't even on the roster. Right. Who else have we got? No, all these teams are still playing. Orlando. Are they the last team? I think they might be. Yeah, Orlando. Okay, let's talk about Orlando and then we're done. Was it a good season for the Magic? I don't think it was a bad season, but it also could have been better. Obviously, they had some pretty significant injuries. Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Jalen Suggs all missed significant time. Those core injuries to Franz and Paolo, very weird. The same injury, which you rarely hear about, happening on the same team within, 2-3 weeks of each other. So that was That was really bad luck. When they went down, they were rolling. They were a top 4 team in the East. Look, they challenged the Celtics to some degree. Do they need to add pieces? Franz and Paolo, very safe. So I think next year, fantasy-wise, we draft them probably a similar range. I think Paolo is better in a points format. Franz Wagner, percentage is a little bit better. So I think both of them, they'll probably go top 40-ish. Jalen Suggs, very good start to the season. Then he suffered a couple of injuries and missed basically the second half of the year. I mean, there's a question mark with him. He plays or he starts at their point guard spot, but I don't think he's a point guard. They can get away with it because of Fran's ability to handle the ball, Paolo's ability to handle the ball. So I think he probably still starts at their point guard spot. Defensively, he's elite. I thought his shot looked better this year. Given the injuries and the fact that he is not, I wouldn't classify him as a proven asset yet. So he probably goes back end of the draft. So after pick 80, anywhere in that range, I think he probably goes, assuming he's healthy and ready to go. And that's probably where the questions start there. So I think Franz, Paolo, Suggs, we know who they are. We know their role. Nothing really changes. The center spot. Wendell Carter is their starting center. Is he a good starting center? He's not bad, but he's not good. They also have Goga Bitadze. They have Mo Wagner, who will come back at some point early in the season, you would think, from his torn ACL. Jonathan Isaac can play a little bit of center. They're a little bit like the Lakers. They're not in as bad a situation because they do have Wendell Carter, who I think, as I said, he's not bad. But he's not a rim protector either. I feel like he should be, but he's not. He can spread the floor, so that's a positive, but they're not a good shooting team. So I think they would be open to bringing in another center. Do they need to? Probably depends what their aspirations are. Would I draft? If Carter is going to start and play 28 minutes, he's probably a last round pick. Just if you need a center, you know what he can do. There's not a lot of upside there. But yeah, we'll see. They may end up chasing someone else. KCP, no. He came into this team to serve a role. Did he do that? I suppose he did, but he's not exciting. He's never really been a must-roster player. He has a week here or there, 2 weeks, where he's hitting his threes, and you can just stream him in and get 12 threes in a week. The steals are fine, but he'll be 32 and a half when the season starts. So he doesn't fit their timeline. Franz is 24. Paolo will be almost 23. Wendell Carter's 26. Anthony Black is 21. So Suggs is 24. So their timeline is not where Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is. So I think there'll be some changes there in Orlando, but they've certainly got the foundations of what could be a competitive team over the next few years. They probably don't have the squad to win. Maybe they could win a playoff series. I don't really see them pushing inside those sort of top 4 or top 2 in the East at this stage, but a lot to come, a lot of changes. All right. That'll probably do, I think, for episode 1. Like I said, there wasn't really much of a run sheet here as such. It was just me wanting to talk a little bit about fantasy, introduce the show. It'll probably be, I want to say 3 to 4 shows a week. It will be so similar like Dan. So Dan has his show. Obviously, he does daily breakdowns. I will also do daily breakdowns, but not every day. I'll probably focus on weekends because Dan doesn't do weekends. So we don't want to overlap too much. I know we have different audience. We have different perspectives. But we also want to try and limit the overlap a little bit. So, yeah, it'll probably be weekends. Dan doesn't tend to record shows on weekends. So I can, he can't. I'll focus. I also, as I said, I've got interesting concept show, which I don't think has been done in the fantasy space before. So I'm working in the background on that, but I'm excited to see what that looks like. So yeah, no, look, I'm looking forward to it. Those that watch my usual Balls Deep show with FBI, that will continue twice a week. Primarily a Twitter show. Will be on YouTube as well, because I know some people do watch it through YouTube. If Blue Sky add the ability to live stream a show on their platform, then I'll certainly do that. At the moment, it's Twitter only. So it will be a Twitter show. It will be a mailbag show. That was sort of where that was a daily breakdown show, but it was really driven by audience or viewer, listener questions. So I think next season I'm just going to lean into that and make it a weekly, semi-weekly. No, that's wrong. Bi-weekly? I don't know. Anyway, 1 to 2 shows a week, a mailbag show, half an hour, 40 minutes. Based on what we had last season, there will be plenty of questions. There always are. So looking forward to it. That will probably kick off. Look, I might even run one after the draft, something like that. In terms of this show, like I said, maybe in a week and a half, once we've got some clarity around who is moving forward through to the conference finals, we can go through the 4 teams that are eliminated from this portion of the postseason. Maybe we touch on those play-in teams as well. Chicago, who else was in there? God, I can't even remember. I don't know. The Bulls. I know the Bulls were there. So we might touch on those teams that were eliminated there. So yeah, we'll find stuff to talk about. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. I'll make sure I click this right entrance or exit music and all that sort of stuff. Don't know when Dan's going to release this show. It'll be in the next day or two. But yes, that will do. All right, we are done. You have been listening or watching Stuff It, a fantasy basketball podcast. I'm Adam King. See ya.